This is my 2001 BMW 330 Ci. It's also known as my E46. It's steel blue metallic. It has 183,000 miles. And it was the first car I ever had in my name. And I've had a long journey with it, and I want to share a story of a guy and his car. A story of a guy and his car. And the reason for that is because a car can be a very significant piece of your life. And this car was for me in so many ways. And I think you all can relate when I talk about the fact and the stories that go with a car and how it can be with you through your life as you transform as a person and the car transforms with you. I'm gonna go back to like 2012, 2013. I'm in college. I don't know what I'm doing, but I am getting into being book smart with cars. I watch a ton of YouTube content all the time. I'm reading all the articles. My whole childhood was road and track and Need for Speed. I was into NASCAR. I was into everything behind a screen when it came to cars. The problem with it was I told everybody how into cars I was, but I actually had never worked on my own car. I'd never changed my own oil. I'd never changed a tire. I didn't know anything about the hands-on aspect of cars. And that's a problem. That's full imposter syndrome. Now, I graduated from college. I started making my own money, and I leased my first car, my Infiniti. And it was tough. It was a tough car for me to own. I loved it. I got into car meets. I got into doing all sorts of car enthusiast related activities where I really enjoyed it. I really got into it. I really found myself in cars. But there was the new car tax. There was the factory warranty I didn't want to void. And for how much fun it was to put a ton of miles on this car that I leased and drive it to every single event that I could and street race it and then start to modify it, I ran into issues. I didn't want to mess with certain things on the car. I didn't want to get too dirty and too far into it where I would lose my investment. I would have to give up the warranty. I would have issues with it. So I needed a project car and I had a couple options, but at the end of the day, this thing came up on Craigslist. 2001 330 Ci. I think it was listed for like $3,300. It's a 5-speed. That was a great deal back in 2018 and it was in San Francisco. The check engine light was on. That was a panic for me. That was a big deal that the check engine light was on. I had no clue what it meant. I didn't know. But fortunately, I had my friend with me, Brayton, his scan tool, and we brought a jack and we had done all this research. You gotta research and inspect the underside of these cars to make sure that the subframe's not cracking, and we scanned it and we found that the check engine light wasn't that big of a deal. We didn't tell the seller that, so we ended up getting it for $2,800. I'd never driven manual before, and I was living in Santa Clara, bought the car in San Francisco. It's a 50-mile drive, and Brayton was able to help me get the car out of San Francisco, but then I had the reality of driving in traffic home in a car that had problems, that had issues. It's an old car. It was 18 years old at the time, and I had no clue how to drive a manual car. I had no clue how to drive stick. I had had a couple lessons before this. I made it, barely, but I made it home. And thus began the ownership of the E46. Now, at first, it was just throwing myself into the deep end. I had $11,000 in savings when I got this car, and I spent $3,000 on the car, and I then had to start building it up. It had miles. It had 163,000 miles when I got it, so I had a lot of repairs to do up front. We already knew I had a check engine light issue. We already knew there were some leaks. We had done a big inspection on the whole car, found all these different maintenance items that we wanted to do on it, and it needed a lot of work. And I also wanted to modify it to start going to the track. I was very excited to start going to the racetrack. So what did I do? I got some coilovers, I got some wheels and tires, I got an entire power steering rebuild kit, and I built up the car. That was essentially all I did, is suspension, wheels and tires, maintenance, let's go racing. Needed a helmet, got a helmet. And 1 month later, I was at the track. And it was a hell of a month to get there. It started with learning how to drive stick. And I drove laps around Calabasas Boulevard, where I lived. And you could just drive laps around that road. And so that's what I did. And I remember one day when I got it. I got how to downshift. I got how to roll out from first gear. I got how to heel toe downshift. I figured it out. I was celebrating to myself in this car, just so happy that I was getting involved in the hands-on aspect of cars. And I wrenched on it, and I was so stressed out about my first oil change. I was so stressed out I wasn't going to put enough oil back in it, and I was going to grenade the engine. There was all sorts of issues in 2018, and overcoming them all and ending up at the racetrack and finding out one of the best activities that I could do, one of the most fun things that I could do, is go to the track. It was awesome. I was hooked immediately, and it meant that I had a lot more to do. I had a lot more modifications to do. I had to go faster. I had to fix more issues that the car had. And over time, we made it bulletproof. We made it significantly more reliable. We made it much faster around the track. We lightened it. We made it faster. I only got stranded on the side of the road twice. Once by my own doing, from when I didn't install a cold air intake correctly, and once when the gas tank fell out from underneath the car when I hit a pothole in Oakland at 3 in the morning. That was a fun evening. But this car also had another interesting role along the way. I met my wife about a month before I bought this car, and I was talking with her at the time that I got this car, and I told her one evening, like, hey, we weren't dating yet. I had just went out and bought this car. And she told me later that her thought about that activity, that thing that I had done was, oh, this is just a guy who just buys cars because he thinks he needs multiple cars for some reason. I don't really get it, but whatever. He's into something. That's cool. He has like a passion, I guess. I like it. And over the next 9 months, from when I owned this car until when we moved in together in London as a married couple, I built this car up, and she tolerated me daily driving a 18, 19-year-old, 165 at the time, 1,000-mile car. It's built for the track, has no air conditioning, is on rock hard suspension, is super low to the ground, has no space inside, and she tolerated all of it. And she didn't really ever complain about it. And I very much appreciated that. Whether she cared or not, I was very self-conscious of my passion. But I had found someone who was willing to support me in that, who was willing to be along for the ride. And that was something that really endeared me to her and what she was doing as a supporter in our relationship. So 9 months later, moved to London. I drove this thing from California up to Seattle, where I stored it at my grandma's house while I was in London. And I spent 18 months abroad, coming back only 3 times during COVID, the early days of COVID, and picking this car up out of storage, driving it around Seattle a couple of days, and then putting it right back. It was under a cover, it was on a trickle charger, and it was babied. It was super, super clean all the time, and that's what it lived at. That was all it did. And when I moved back from London in early 2021, I immediately started going to the track again. I bought a tow rig, I bought a diesel truck so I could put this car on a trailer and take it to the track more reliably. I figured out that I didn't need to fill the trunk with all my belongings and cross my fingers that I was going to make it home. I could safely push the car knowing that I could tow it home from the track if something went wrong. That was a very important insurance policy at the time because things started going wrong quickly, unfortunately. I did 5 more track days, in which time I also decided to make the car a purpose-built track car. It meant gutting the interior completely, putting in a roll cage, and making the car nearly undailyable. A 5-point harness and a bucket seat, no air conditioning, no sound deadening, no interior whatsoever, does kind of ruin the daily driver experience of a car, unfortunately. That being said, I continued to daily it from time to time, and after about 9 months of doing this, I got another daily. I got my M3, my E90 M3, and this began to sit a little bit more, and I tried to make it more and more track worthy, and I kept going to the track more and more. And this all culminated in January of 2022. I took this car to the track and I kept up with a supercharged E92 M3 at Laguna Seca. It was basically the highlight of this car's existence. I have this photo of this car on the corkscrew right behind that E92 M3, and it was such a special moment to feel like this 180 horsepower little old engine that could basically kept up with this hyper modified race car. And it was down to me as a driver and a well-built handling car. Definitely no power involved. Unfortunately, things went downhill from there. I towed this car up to Washington after a small coolant leak in what I thought was a reliable fix, and I went on track at the Ridge in Washington. And what happened when I got there is on the second session, I noticed going through a corner that the temperature gauge, which had been absolutely rock solid at 120 degrees in Button Willow, it had been perfect for me every time I'd ever touched this car. It had gone up to the middle of the temperature gauge and it had stayed there. It was in the red. That was bad. Turns out the coolant gauge lights up at the red zone when you actually get there with the needle. Next thing I know, the car shuts off, tells me it has no coolant, and steam starts coming out of the hood. So that's bad. It turns out the radiator that had been replaced was not replaced very well, and I overheated the car so badly that it developed a head gasket leak. These are iron blocks and heads, and it's kind of impressive that it warped the head to the point of blowing the head gasket. It's a very sad and unfortunate time for this car's life. I tried to fix it. I didn't actually diagnose the head gasket leak for about a year. It took a long time to figure out what the problem was. I didn't know that smell that I know now of what a failing head gasket smells like. I tried all these different coolant repairs. I put in a beefier cooling fan. I tried to go to the track again. I overheated again. I ran out of coolant again. Nothing was working. This car was getting really frustrating for me, and I didn't know what to do. I didn't know. I thought my only option was just to drive it short distances until I could replace the engine. But I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to go through that effort. This engine had been so good to me, I didn't want to tear it out of this car. So I just daily drove it to the gym that was 3 miles from my house, and I put on probably 500 miles, going 6 miles a day at 4 in the morning with no traffic, no defrost, bucket seats, seatbelt situation, and I just kind of tolerated it and tried to get the most value that I could out of the car. But ultimately, even that got a little boring. I got a home gym. I didn't want to keep commuting to the gym, basically, and I ran out of uses for this car. And in middle of 2023, I bought the first Driven Auto Care location in Fremont, and one of the first things I did, and this was very selfish and not at all a business owner activity of me, was I towed this car to the shop and I dropped it off. And I said, eventually this car will get a new engine at Driven Auto Care. And so that's what we did. A few months later, we had some free time. I bought a used engine and we slapped it in. Great. Now I'm supposed to start going to the track again, right? Well, now I own a business. Now I'm a little too busy to really get involved with this car to the same extent I was before. I'm not a young guy anymore. I've gained, 3 years, 2 years of age and bumps and bruises on me that make me not want to sit in this bucket seat for that long. It makes me not want to go to the track in a car with no air conditioning, no climate control at all, no radio, and tolerate a day in the 100-degree sun just to go around track in it for a whole day without my family. That just isn't as appealing as it once was to me. What is appealing is like a higher end experience, maybe a nicer car, maybe something where I can keep it a little more stock and still get a similar sort of performance out of it. But what do I do with this thing? It has so much sentimental value to me from everything that I've been through with it. I've learned how to wrench. I learned that I shouldn't wrench on it. I've stripped more bolts on this car than any other I've ever touched. I've replaced more parts on this car than any car I've ever touched. I've touched every system on this car, from every engine gasket to the gas tank. I had to strap the gas tank up into the car with chicken wire at one point. This car has been through so much with me, so many memories. My marriage was built in this car. So what do I do? I don't use it anymore. It has no purpose. It collects dust. So I have two options. Do I mothball it? Do I keep it and drain all the fluids out of it, take the tires off of it, and put it up in storage somewhere where it can just sit, live out the rest of its days with me pointing at it, me saying, look at this car that I have all these memories with? Or should I make a video like this? Should I document the story that I've had with this car and how it helped transform my life from being someone who was book smart but not street smart about cars, who was scared to do anything with regard to cars because I had no experience. I was full of imposter syndrome. I was full of fear. And this car is what got me out of it. This car gave me the gateway drug to learning and experiencing everything that I have today with regard to cars. Now I own multiple repair shops. I have multiple successful automotive businesses, and it all started here. So do I keep it because that story is just too valuable to give up? Or do I move it on? Do I sell it? Do I give it to somebody? Do I donate it? Do I let it go because it has more miles to be driven? Does it have more time rolling down the road? I don't know yet. I'm at least preparing to sell it. We're taking some listing photos of it. We're doing, some things to at least get my mind, my heart ready to let go of this car. It's a painful process. I feel like I'm kind of losing a part of myself. But if I just put this car in storage and let it sit forever, what good is it going to do? It's not going to be able to contribute to society anymore. These are tools that are meant to be used, that are meant to be utilized for transportation, for entertainment, for fun, for creating the memories like I have with it. So what do you guys think I should do? I have these two options. I can give it up. I can donate it. I could sell it, could give it to somebody, or I could just keep it. I could put it on a shelf and point at it. I could, put it on a rotating plinth, a rotating platform somewhere in the mansion I'll someday own. They both sound like good ideas. There's my DNA all over this car. I don't know if anybody else even wants it. It is pretty ruined, to be honest. It's quite impractical. It's quite difficult to use. But hey, I love it. And maybe you love this story too. So for now, my desire is to keep this thing rolling on the road, to let it stay driven. But what do you think? Stay driven or not? Hello. Fortunately, my story with this car has an end. I don't have to leave you hanging in this video. I shot all of that you saw previously back in May of 2025, and I sat on the video because it was a very low priority to get it out. It is now March 16th, 2026 today, and this car last weekend sold on Bring a Trailer for $9,000. Prior to that, I had actually made an offer made a deal to sell the car to one of my employees at Driven Auto Care for $7,000. So to get $9,000, I was satisfied with that number. The car is getting picked up tomorrow and shipped up to Seattle, Washington, of all places, where a new owner will be able to take it on the track as much as he sees fit and keep it going in its life. And for as sad as I am that it's leaving, and for all the memories that will be lost as this car goes away from my life on a day-to-day basis, this video will serve as everything I need to really take forwards, I've decided. And that in recounting the memories I have with this car, especially as I sit here today, parked in the Driven compound with my E36 M3 that also recently sold on Bring a Trailer. This car was the stablemate of this car back when I lived with Brayton in Santa Clara. He had an E36 M3. And again, this car has been through such an evolution in my life with me. It's gotten to see pretty much everything that I've become. And I don't really think I have the same level of change that will occur in my life as has occurred over the last 8 years of ownership with this E46. So I am very grateful to have had it in my life. We will see if my buyer of this car is actually able to coordinate transport that is willing to pick up a lowered, modified track car like this. Hopefully he is, because I now don't want to see it anymore. Now that it's here, it's just taking up space. Same with this car. This car is going to St. Louis. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you can relate as you think about cars and how you've built memories with cars through your life. So that's all I got for today. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like. If you have any questions or feedback, leave a comment. And if you're not subscribed, get subscribed so you don't miss the videos, now more than weekly, coming to Driven Diary. So with all that said, I hope you can go out and continue to build your own automotive dreams, find cars like this that absolutely change your life and you can create memories with for nearly a decade, and stay driven.